Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, where inspired women talk about the journey of motherhood through the common thread of parenting, relationship, and sexuality as a path to consciousness. We keep our conversations honest, our experiences real, and our philosophies exploratory.
We believe that in order to raise incredible humans, we first have to raise ourselves. We know that in order to rock the family, you've got to nourish the mother. If you are here, you care about paving a path of conscious and intentional motherhood, connected with yourself and your gifts, and also illuminating your children in theirs so we may raise more whole humans who can impact this world in a more humane way. If you desire to integrate this learning practically and supportively into your life, then Soul-Driven Motherhood is your space to go deeper. Head on over to nourishingthemother.com.au or follow any of the links on our socials for Soul-Driven Motherhood.
We are Julie Tenner and Bridget Wood, and we're so grateful you're here.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is creating community and finding your peeps. Speaking of which, there are possums on my roof.
Speaking of peeps.
Speaking of
peeps. We've got a few of the furry kind.
So we really want to take the conversation here about what we recognise is potentially a great grief and a great struggle for particularly a lot of mothers, which is how do I really find and create a deeply nourishing community around me? How do I feel like I fit like the perfect puzzle piece rather than always feeling like there's pieces of me that aren't welcome here? How do I find my Bridget to my Julie? So that's the conversation that we want to have today. Before we do that, I would love to remind you to jump into nourishingthemother.com.au, scroll on down to the red banner, drop in your email address, and you are part of the Nourishing the Mother community. And every so often, we send you out an email that just has a little bit of wisdom and a link for everything we've put out in the world. And then you miss nothing and you're a click away from anything that you want to dive into. So nourishingthemother.com.au, drop in your email and become part of the community. Promise we won't spam you.
We won't. Now, this topic has to be probably one of our top 5 email topics that I think that we get in terms of mums reaching out and saying, I just want to find my people. How do I find my people? And it pops up all the time in Soul-Driven Motherhood too. So I'm really glad that we're talking about this because you and I both have stories around what this looked like, what this has looked like for us in our different evolutions of motherhood. And I certainly have a really just soul nourishing I'm basking still in the glory of my recent Easter camping trip with just this beautiful bunch of families, and just thought, gosh, so much of my values have led me to here, and yeah, it was so beautiful watching my children play, and as a parent and as a human being around such beautiful people, I was just wow, we all need to be reminded that yes, when you show up as you and you live the life that is yours, that your people can find you. And it's amazing when they do.
Have you always had faith that your people would find you?
No. and I think probably so many of my teenage years were filled with, I don't have my people. How am I going to find my people? I remember wanting to change schools and never really feeling like I fit. And so I think probably that void growing up is also what's fueled my relentless pursuit of creating it, by virtue of my businesses, my relationship with you, and all that, the other different friends that I've, come into relationship with.
It's such a great reminder. I'm just really basking in that from a parent level. Going, that is such a great reminder. So you're the child, it's kind of my worst nightmare. He's like, I don't fit in anywhere. I don't have any friends. I want to leave this school. Because there's part of me that contemplates that as the spectrum of possibility and goes, fuck.
Yeah.
What would I do? That feels really brutal. Yeah. And here you are going, and yet I can see that if that was what I needed to create a life of such complete authenticity and alignment that I find my people for the rest of my life, would I trade that experience?
Yeah. And the pain of that, like the pain of feeling so utterly misunderstood or unmet, means that it builds within you like a fuel or your own kind of pilot light that never goes out, because you know what the absence of it feels like. You know, little like connection or disconnection, you know what disconnection feels like, and you know the potency, therefore, of what you can create through connection.
Because if you've known something in its absence, you often seek for its presence.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, like for me in motherhood, I mean, that was just yet another iteration of sitting in a mother's group counsel. First of all, sitting in a hospital with somebody who had completely different, opposite, it seemed, birth experience and early postpartum experience to me, and then getting put in, going home and having no friends or anybody with the baby anywhere near me. Because, you know, when you work in the city and commute and have this life that's where all your friends are an hour away from you, and you're thrust into, oh, this is what it's like to be in this house that I bought, which, you know, I've only ever walked the streets of and have no friends in. I now have to build community immediately because I don't have the, you know, the job and all of the other things that gave me that. And I'm looking after a brand new human. I mean, like the amount of
it's a lot of psychological pressure, I think.
Yeah. Like thrust into in new motherhood.
Yeah.
In terms of,
and yet when you don't cope, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
I know.
It's like it's just turned into pathology.
I know.
We've talked about this before.
I know, but I really it breaks my heart at the same time as it makes me absolutely rageful.
Yeah.
Is how much we dismiss the experience of the feminine and particularly the experience of mothers. It is so invisibilized to the point of making it shameful just so we don't have to acknowledge it.
Yeah, because it's easier to just, you know, pretend it's all good, or, you know, she's just, you know, having a hard day, rather than she's feeling completely.
Just you're so blessed.
Oh, yeah, of course. Oh, you know, at least you have a healthy baby, Julie.
Yeah.
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 And don't worry about all your other needs because
you've got a baby.
You've got a baby.
And just the psychological turning inside out. Like, yes, it's a blessing. Yes, it's beautiful. And it's psychologically one of the greatest transformations that you will ever make.
And I never forget that moment of like that first baby and taking them home from hospital. And I had this kind of sense of like, what, you're going to let us take it home?
I know. I remember that too.
Well,
and still feeling
so
like you.
weird.
I know. And like you're 15 on something, walk home and you've got this baby. And I remember like it's in the like carry crib thing or whatever. And I was like, this is weird.
Yeah. Are you sure I'm allowed?
Are you sure? Like, am I adult enough? I don't know what this is.
No one's given me the manual. Although I had one.
What do we do now? Yeah, you did. I didn't. I literally remember putting Heath down in the middle of the lounge room and going, we were still living in the city then, and going, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? Like, what happens now? But on the non-jokey side, it is one of the greatest psychological sheddings and transformations. And despite the fact that there is an enormous amount of joy and love and heart explosion and all the things, there is an equal amount of grief and isolation,
resentment
and pain.
Yeah.
And I think we do everyone an injustice when we say, just focus on the good. Don't worry about any of that.
Oh, God, that's like toxic. I reckon.
Drives it underground. Yeah. And that's when it becomes pathology. Because there's no space for it. There's no voice for it. There's no normalization of it. There's no one doulaing you or, you know, mothering you through that as a process of your awakening.
And all we have in our mainstream medical system is numbing. Oh, we'll just numb you. Because
I wish it was different.
To feel it all, you know, would be intense. And, you know, I have such reverence for that, because that's kind of, unless you have access to a doula or access to things that you possibly never even knew were things. Like I never knew you could even have a home birth. I never knew about doulas. I never knew about any of these things with my first baby. All of the things that I think actually hold women through these transformations.
Yeah, you're lucky to even know about.
You're lucky to know about.
It's true.
Because I think that we've forgotten what the feminine really needs to be truly nourished and supported through this kind of transition.
Yeah, totally. I think that's 100% true. Let's get back to community.
Yes, community. So to create community.
So what I loved about what you said was all of a sudden you've never lived real. I mean, you've owned this house. You've, you know, strode up and down the streets getting to and from the station or whatever. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I actually have to create a life here.
I have to create, because it was like, it was a communal lifestyle. So sure, we kind of like rode our bikes on the weekend and, you know, like we kind of got to know our pocket of town. But to actually be in this home, in this street, in this suburb, like every day with no network while you're healing your body and getting to know a baby, I mean, like it's a rebirth. It's a complete and utter rebirth. And with that is a death of everything that you ever knew. And to do that without community is just, I don't know.
It's insult upon injury.
Yeah, it is. And so to create community, I mean, thank God for the internet, I think, because the internet helps you to reveal to yourself what your values are and what you're seeking. And I noticed that I was spending a lot of time looking on like natural parenting kind of forums and, you know, like reading a lot of women's experiences online to kind of get a sense of what I felt like my values were, which were, you know, of course, leaning towards natural parenting and, you know, all of those things associated with that. And so then that opened up an opportunity to see, well, how do I tap into that where I am? And then it's like once you it's almost like once you kind of set your kind of sail for a destination, and it's like that destination begins to appear on the horizon in more crystallized form. And so it's like, you know, when you move towards something, that same thing moves towards you. So in every step that you take towards, oh, I know that I want to meet people who have like, you know, these kinds of, who are interested in talking about these kinds of topics, or who like to feed their children this kind of food, or like to parent respectfully, then you realize that there are other people who also value those things.
Which is so important, particularly if you are the anomaly in the community that you currently find yourself in.
And if you're seeking to do things differently, perhaps how you were raised, and that you find yourself misunderstood or unable to connect with those who came before you.
Or were still silenced.
Or silenced.
Minimized.
Yeah, like, and this can often happen too, I think, for women who come from, you know, a matriarchal maybe line of stoicism or dismissing of the feminine, that your experience can be, you know, kind of explained away or just not really
marginalized.
Yeah, marginalized. And so the community, therefore, is even more important, because you're not feeling seen by those around you. You're not, sometimes even your values can be seen as indulgent, maybe, particularly as first-time mothers who are wanting to repattern their experiences. That can look like jarring even to those around you. And so you seek out those communities, and you seek them out, and you drive for them. Like you and I both know that, like how much you would, sometimes it is that you're not going to have them on your doorstep, that you're going to have to seek them out. And it's going to mean car trips and figuring out naps, but knowing that each step you take toward what you vision is part of your deeper connection to your truth in that time in your life, or in this time in your motherhood, and that through learning sometimes what you don't value, you come closer to what you do. And sometimes we'll have those jarring experiences of what we really don't value.
To remind us.
To remind us that.
And guide us towards where we would rather be or need to be.
Yeah. What would you say, Jules?
Look, I just always think no different to dating. You need to find the place of shared interests. So, you have to go to the places and spaces that your people are going to be. And that's through having hobbies and having shared visions and ways of seeing the world, or interests and passions, and specifically putting yourself in those places. So, I mean, you and I met at a natural parenting playgroup. So I know if I put myself in the space of a natural parenting playgroup, I will meet people that think like me. Like, I just know that's going to happen. You don't turn up to those niche and alternative spaces unless you see the world the same way I do, because you're not interested. You don't want to be there unless you do. So it's a guaranteed way in which to find my people. And I just tried everything. Everything, every group I could possibly find. So along here, we had the Southern Natural Parenting Playgroup. We had the Natural Parenting Playgroup, of which, I went to one. I traveled half an hour to go to one when my first two were little. And then I started one I continued one when that leader left. I took over leading that group and moved it 10 minutes closer, and then moved it, then left leading that one. And then when I had Lola, found the one here, 10 minutes from my house where I met you. Where else I've gone? Steiner, we went through the Steiner streams, kindergarten and school, and found my people there. Same as Montessori, same as, any play-based, nature-based experiences. I would find my people anywhere that they were talking about health and consciousness, any networks of practitioners or yoga spaces. I was guaranteed to be rubbing shoulders with my people. So if you are not rubbing shoulders with your people, then I don't think you're actually dating right.
That's such a good analogy, because it's so true. Because, even in dating, like women will be saying that, like, there's no great men out there, and mothers might be saying there's no other mothers who kind of do things the way I do. Actually, that thought or that feeling is just feedback to say, how could you pinpoint, your location of where you're seeking to meet people more, how can you fine tune that?
Yeah. I'll give you the example. I mean, my mum's now well in her 70s, but even after my dad passed away, she was still relatively young. So she was 50 when my dad passed away. So, that's Nick's, my husband, Nick, is 50 this year. That's his age. Yeah. You're still ready to be dating.
Totally.
At that age and having a partnership. But I remember years and years and years of listening to my mum and her friends in various ways and spaces complain about never finding a partner. And I remember looking at her thinking, well, what do? You scrapbook.
Yeah.
Who's at the scrapbooking meets?
Yeah. More scrapbooking women.
60-year-old women who also don't have partners.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe you want to try some other hobbies?
Yeah.
Find some other spaces of interest that might be common ground for the people you're wanting to attract in and have intimacy experiences with. You can't just be like me or I can't be friends with you.
Yeah.
You actually have to go, how do you like to hang out? Where do you like to be? I can be there too and love that.
Yeah.
So I actually think you've got to date better. I do also think that we are so blessed with the internet.
Oh, how good is it?
So back when I had Heath and Jade, that situation was not around. I mean, it was around, but not really.
Yeah, not like the way it is.
Oh my God, not like the way it is now. I mean, Soul Driven Motherhood, our group, was born out of the fact that we were like, where does this space exist? Nowhere. Let's create it. And same as the podcast. Let's just create it because we can't find it. And surely there's other women who will be attracted to that same frequency, who want to be creating community and having conversations like we are. Like, that's, if it doesn't exist, create it.
Yeah.
Create it. I mean, that's what I say to the women in my Embark program all the time. Like, if the thing that you really want to go to doesn't exist, there's a reason for that, because you are meant to be the one who creates that experience and calls the women in.
And that those women for whom that's a perfect match for are waiting for you to create.
They're waiting. They're waiting. So I also think that this advent of intimate groups, paid spaces where I think you get even a higher caliber or quality of matchmaking, because free groups are great, but you're going to get still, it's a wide net. As soon as you move to a paid space in any genre, you are going to refine and refine and refine the people who are in that community by virtue of there being money there. Yeah, there's an investment there. Right. So each time, and I would argue also that the more expensive something is, usually the more concentrated it is with people who are exactly like you, if you are also willing to invest in that space. So it's like a matchmaking service, only it exists socially in everything.
And then it's amazing. Like, my husband and I often marvel, like, we'll end up seeing something on TV and like, it might be, what was it? I think we saw stacking. It's like cup stacking.
Oh, yeah, my kids were mad for that.
Cup stacking tournaments.
Yeah.
And like, it attracts a lot of ASD, like kids.
Yeah.
And I was just, I was so touched watching it. And I said, Marcus, is this not so beautiful? There really is something.
The same as like Lego Masters even.
There's something for everyone.
Oh my God, totally. 100% there is.
And like, the internet opens up.
The internet opens up because you're no longer limited by location.
Yeah.
You can literally be as specialized and as niche as you like. And there is now a worldwide population. You said, I've got this. Who else likes that? Turns out the whole world can have that conversation with you. So, which I find incredibly profound. And as you and I know, we share many online spaces and groups together. And it is profound, the relationships that you create there.
Yeah. And that they're already, like, there's so many women who, like you and I, haven't even met in person yet, but I
feel like they're my best friends already.
I know. Like, you would see them and just like embrace them like a long lost friend, because you know them. There's an intimacy there without you having ever been physically intimate.
Yeah, because you've had shared experiences of vulnerability and connection. Like, it builds intimacy. It's amazing. And I don't think that the quality of your intimacy has to be defined by your location. So you might be country and completely isolated from a lot of humanity. That's so fine. Yeah. You can gain an enormous amount of richness through online spaces and places and conversations and workshops that fuel and feed your heart and soul. And that often can be enough to be really happy where you are.
And this is the truth too, because we can feel like, oh no, the village is gone, the village is gone. I think the village has just more form.
100%.
And that we need to embrace the form in which it's offered. And to see where we can resource ourselves effectively with that, so that we can empower ourselves in our motherhood. And yes, we live within the realm of patriarchal motherhood, which has within it a lot of repression or projection of how you should be, but we also get a lot of levers with which we can pull out to make it work for us. And that's, I think, the invitation of consciously creating what community looks like for you.
And I would also say not to stop at your own projections, because it's really easy.
It so is.
To stay where you are and go, well, there's no one like me. They don't think like me. I don't think like them.
And put walls up.
I've got no one. Yeah. I can't show them that because da-da-da-da-da, all the things.
I mean, this is yours and my story in mainstream schooling, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And beyond that, like, I love craft. Like I love rhythmic movement with my hands and conversations with rhythmic movement with my hand with women. If I could have a circle of women and we're all rhythmically moving our hands and creating something with them physically while we create something with our hearts and souls in conversation, that is
heaven.
Oh, that is my happy place. Like that is the epitome for me of where I would like to just live. And so it didn't exist. So I created Craft Circle, right? Like you came to Craft Circle way back.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, I'm going to do this. Every Monday night, I'm committing to showing up because my husband was always out at basketball, which he still is. That's why he was out again tonight. Still is forever and a day because it's so good for his soul.
Yeah.
So instead of getting resentful, how could I create my own soul food? And I couldn't leave my house because I had 2 little children who needed to be in bed and my husband wasn't home. I was. So instead of going, well, it's not possible and I can't and blah, 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 I went, okay, what's the worst that happens? I have a group of mums that come over or even just one makes it over and my kids are up and they're feral. I'm pretty sure that mum would get me.
Yeah.
And it'd be cool.
And you'd probably feel more seen and supported even in that.
Yes, that's like my worst case scenario. So why am I stopping at that? Even if I got there, I'd be fine. Which, of course, actually never happened. My kids were really happy just to hear a group of women nattering away and they would just lay in bed and listen to that and fall asleep. Like they were always, they never got up. It was never an issue. They knew at 7 o'clock, boom, they were in bed and the door, we leave their bedroom doors open and the hallway door open, all the things. They were always just happy just to hear that.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really beautiful. So you've got to be willing to create it and say, hey, this is something my soul really wants to do. And regardless of whether anyone's going to join me or not, my soul's going to do this. But it's here if you'd like to join me.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's amazing how many women go, oh, I didn't know that. I would love to try that. Oh, my heart's been yearning for that. I didn't know that was a thing. Same thing with Women's Circle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like
I didn't even know. Like even one of my friends with my blessing way that you ran with Sylvie, she was like, oh my God, I didn't even know something like that was even possible. Like that just was so amazing. And that's the thing. I think we all didn't know, I don't know we wanted something until we're shown that it's possible.
And there's a richness that your soul knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So same thing with Women's Circle. I mean, I had always come from super alternative spaces. I'd kind of caged and had those type of experiences with those type of people.
Yeah.
And it came a point where I was looking at these soul-starving women who I'd started to love in a lot of ways in mainstream school. And I was missing not being able to get to those spaces often enough. And I felt a great calling to say, I'm going to try this. It's going to look like this. Do you want to come try with me? And just by virtue of saying that, those women were like, yeah, I really do. But it would have been easy for me to say, oh, they'll ridicule me.
Yeah.
They'll never get it. No one's going to want to. They'll think that I'm crazy. And yet, the truth of all of my years of seeing behind the closed doors and the white picket fence is that we're so more the same than we are different. And yet we stop at our own movie screen projection onto the white picket fence. So I often think it's our projections rather than possibility that prevents us from creating community.
Yeah, that's the truth, isn't it?
Because I don't doubt I could plant myself anywhere and say, hey, I'm going to be running this. I'm okay to be the crazy lady of the town. That's cool. But if you're also a little unhinged, come on over.
you know where we're at.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it takes courage. It takes courage to be that person.
Well, it's a bit like your podcast from last week. It takes courage to say, you get to see all of me and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you to see it and go, ooh, that is not for me.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for you to see it and go, oh my God, that is for me. That's okay.
But to the degree to which you can stand and be like not for people is the degree to which the ones that you're really for can see you.
It's 100% true.
Mm. So can you, when you want to create a community, really be you and ask for what you would love? Create what you would love.
And not be attached to an expectation or what it means about you. Just be like, hey, my soul's going to love this.
And also just notice your projections, because as you're doing this, you'll also go, oh, but like they might not be like, they might be like, part of what we do, and I've done this too. You'll like make all the reasons why either you're wrong or they're wrong, or you won't be able to work it out. Or and there's be like, there's a kind of initial stiltedness.
Yeah, there's always going to be an awkwardness. Yeah. Same as dating, though.
Yeah, it's true. It's so true, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know. Do you like me?
Yeah.
Do I like you? I think I do. Maybe I like you more than you like me. Right? Like it's seriously dating.
Yeah. And it's mum dating.
No, it is. Even the whole, catch someone at the park, that whole like, oh, I'd really like to see her again.
Yeah. I hope that if she's there,
how do I ask her?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if I turn up at like a certain time,
will she be there again?
Yeah.
I know. Whereas now I'm kind of like, hey, look, we had a really great, this is going to sound so weird. I had a really great time. Would you be interested in catching up again? Sounds like a date as I'm saying it out loud. But it's something, I'd love to catch up for coffee or something. Did you want to swap numbers? And just an invitation like that just can be that easy. And I think you've got to take those invitations rather than feeling scared, because the truth is you might never be back there.
Yeah, it's true.
You might never like see that person again. Sliding doors and, Anyway, so back on topic of creating community and finding your peeps. What's your wisdom on it?
Listen to your heart's yearning of what you would love. And let the pain of where you are propel you forward. Like, let that be something that moves you. Because, for both you and I, our hearts kind of had to crack open in terms of what we weren't getting to really, be inspired enough to create what we wanted.
Well, and to be just so grateful for when I found it.
Yeah.
That kind of made me attached to it. Because I'd known its absence. So I was like, I'm staying forever. Which there's purpose in that.
Yeah, it's true.
To be really grateful. Someone feels that when you're just grateful for their presence and you're just grateful to be here and you're just deeply appreciating them and this moment. People feel that, and that feels beautiful to be around someone who's deeply appreciating you. You want to be around that person more.
You do, because that just feels really
good. Versus someone who doesn't really give a shit.
Yeah. And I think also it's so beautiful to just bathe your kids in that as well, to that feeling of just feeling really nourished by gratitude and just everyone's getting their needs and desires met here.
Yeah.
This is what feels good. This is what I want my body and my brain to search for more of. That's a good cocktail of hormones.
It's really true. It's really true. And I would say to you, find the places and the spaces that your people would hang out. So go to the yoga studios.
Yeah.
Go to the whole food cafes.
Yeah.
Go to the local chiro who's having a talk on gut health.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way. And also be willing to grow together as well. If you find your people, find ways to be around them more. So for example, with my community, we also all go to a boxing class together where we can take our kids. So our kids get to play and we sweat it out like crazy. And that touch point is also another kind of thread in the web that connects us and that nourishes us and our kids, right? So there's other ways to build out that community so that it serves more areas of your life as well. And I know that you did that with basketball for a long time, to create more touch points to feel supported and connected to your community.
I think that's really beautiful advice. And then that's led on to you going away for a weekend.
Yeah. And then led on to the week's camping. And, just, you know, it was one, I think also for me too, like I saw a friend grow up who had like those annual camping, retreat camping with like, you know, the big group. And I always wanted it as a child. And I always wondered how you did that, like how you could create that. And like it was just right in front of me.
Me too. I always wondered that. I've been reflecting on that recently too, how it's so funny, isn't it? I wonder sometimes I would love to just go back to childhood to go, oh, yeah, you wished for that then.
Yeah.
Look what you've manifested. Because I think we'd actually find more truth in ourselves pre-10.
Yeah, it's so true. It's actually it's a really interesting exercise to actually draw like the things that you identified most with, like pre-10, like who you saw yourself as, what you spent your time doing, because that's like your more authentic self before you got all the
I find it fascinating. So I used to watch, similar to you, that's what inspired it as you were speaking then, was this just really tight-knit community of, you know, a few mums, and they just like would do so much stuff together, and then by virtue of that their kids would be hanging out at each other's houses all of the time, blah blah blah. And I was always like, wow, that's like a mystery to me. How does that happen? How do you create that? And yet that is my life. Like that school community is 100%. We do the same thing, go away for weekends and camping trips, and it's always the same crew of people who are at every single event, and we're in each other's lives in various ways. And so by virtue of that, so are our kids. And it's an enormously enriching environment. Like I actually am so grateful for it, because I know that even if I can't be there or my husband can't be there, there's so many people that could be.
And that really is priceless, because it's almost like what holds your family.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
Kind of nest.
Yeah, it is. And look, I would just say same as online spaces, like
yeah, exactly. You know,
like-minded people,
and those people who also become your network, who you know that you can call on, even if you've never met them in person.
And sometimes don't even need to, like just to have, here's my problem, here's my riff, you know, and have the psychological support and processing that is missing in our world, the richness and the depth and the mothering and the mentoring that we ourselves need as mothers can be found in online spaces. So, and sometimes I actually think there's more richness there for me than even the in-person experiences, the in-person community that I have, because we're all so busy. So it gets harder and harder to catch up in person.
And get to depth, you know. Often it's like, you know, managing life.
Yeah, it really is. And yet the online spaces, every week I find rich conversations and vulnerability and community there. I think that's extraordinary. I wish I had those with my first and second. I think that would have been a game changer. So I just would really love for you to consider that it's okay to look at finding your community as a project, like you might if you were finding a partner. It's okay to date, to try out all the places and spaces, to speed date a few, because there's going to be some good, some bad, and some great fitting. Like that's the way it's going to go, until you go, oh, okay, no, this is my space, this is my vibe, these are my people. So please find that. If it doesn't exist, it's because you're meant to create it, and don't let your projections stop you, because I promise you behind that picket fence is another soul and heart yearning just like yours.
Yes, I love that. Such a beautiful way to finish it. And also to be open to what's right in front of you too. I mean, for you and I both, like, don't let your projections get in the way of that heart that's waiting to connect.
Don't hold back.
Yeah. So to connect with us, it's nourishingthemother.com.au, and we are running Elixir, our wisdom series, which is all about expanding consciousness and really, really workshopping challenges and opening them up to see wider. So we invite you to come and join us in Soul Driven Motherhood for that.
Which is an amazing online community that you will find your people in.
Yes. And in fact, like we've got so many beautiful matchmaking stories of Soul Driven Motherhood.
It's true.
Women who've connected and caught up. And built great friendships from. So yeah, we really invite you to consider jumping in and connect with you, Jules.
Is julietanner.love and you, Bridge?
bridgetwood.life. So remember to nourish the woman, to rock the family.
And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
Thank you so much for listening. We literally couldn't do this without you. Please share this podcast with anyone you think it would be medicine for.
And if you're ready to ask, in what ways can I show up more fully, live more meaningfully, parent more wholly, and love more unconditionally? How can I mine the wisdom from the experiences of my life and expand into those challenges? Then you're a soul-driven, heart-led mama who's ready for conversations and a community that supports her journey. Come join Soul Driven Motherhood. We'd love to have you.
And if you feel like giving back a little to this free content, please rate us on iTunes or Facebook, all of which helps the podcast reach more mamas who need this type of tonic for the soul.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavored to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.